Imagine waking up in a world where your voice is a crime, where a simple argument with your neighbor could end with your head locked in an iron cage, or a rumor could see you dragged to the river and drowned for entertainment. We often think of history as a series of wars and kings, but there is a darker, silent history written on the bodies of women. For centuries, the justice system wasn't blind. It was predatory. It designed machines not just to kill, but to humiliate, to silence, and to break the female spirit. Today, we are peeling back the layers of time to expose the most terrifying punishments women faced. From the fires of the stake to the cold iron of the bridle, these are the tools of a society terrified of female power. Are you ready to face the darkness? Let's begin. The mask of shame. We start with a device that looks like it belongs in a nightmare, but for women in 16th century Britain, it was a terrifying reality: the scold's bridle. Also known as the brank, this wasn't just a punishment, it was a weapon against speech. Picture a heavy iron cage locked onto your head. Inside, a metal plate, sometimes covered in spikes, is forced into your mouth, pinning your tongue down. Any attempt to speak results in excruciating pain and a mouthful of blood. But the horror didn't stop at the pain. The bridle often featured a bell on top. Why? To announce your arrival. Authorities would chain you and drag you through the town square like an animal. Your neighbors would come out to point, laugh, and throw filth. Your crime? Being a scold, a woman who talked too much, argued with her husband, or dared to speak her mind. This was weaponized humiliation, designed to teach every woman watching a singular lesson. Silence is safety. But if iron couldn't silence you, perhaps water would. Drowning in public view. If the bridle was for the tongue, the ducking stool was for the spirit. Used extensively in medieval England and colonial America, this punishment turned the village pond into a theater of cruelty. The accused, often labeled a gossip or a witch, was strapped into a wooden chair attached to a long, seesaw-like beam. Then, the spectacle began. The operator would hoist the beam and plunge the woman into the freezing, murky water. They would hold her under until her lungs burned, pulling her up just seconds before death, only to plunge her back down again. The crowd cheered as if it were a sport. The shock of the cold water could cause heart attacks, and the filth could lead to fatal infections. Symbolically, it mirrored the ancient trial by water. If you floated, you were guilty. If you sank, you were innocent and likely dead. It was a lose-lose game where the only prize was trauma. The geometry of pain. Moving from water to wood, we encounter a device so simple yet so devastating, it defines medieval brutality: the Spanish donkey. This was not a creature of burden, but a triangular wooden beam, sharpened at the top like a knife edge. The victim was forced to straddle this ridge, her entire body weight focused on her most sensitive area. To increase the agony, torturers would tie heavy weights to her ankles. Gravity became the executioner. The sharp wood would slowly slice through flesh and muscle, sometimes causing permanent, crippling damage or dividing the body in half. Used during the Inquisition against women accused of witchcraft or adultery, the Spanish donkey was a message carved in blood. Defiance would result in the destruction of the very body that defined you. But for some crimes, the punishment needed to be even more invasive. The internal destroyer. If the Spanish donkey attacked from the outside, the pair of anguish destroyed from within. This device is perhaps the most infamous example of mechanical cruelty. Shaped like a metal pear, it consisted of 4 petals that could separate. It was inserted into the victim's mouth or other private areas, depending on the accusation, blasphemy, adultery, or witchcraft. The torturer would then turn a screw at the base. Slowly, the metal petals would expand. There was no escape. The device would stretch, tear, and mutilate internal tissues, causing unbearable agony and often fatal internal bleeding. While historians debate how widely it was used, its very existence proves a chilling point. The ingenuity of the time was focused on maximizing female suffering. It was a violation designed to leave scars that no one could see, but the victim would never forget. Mutilation of motherhood. Some punishments were designed to target the very symbols of womanhood. The breast ripper, or iron spider, was a tool of pure malice. Used primarily in Bavaria and parts of Germany, this device featured claw-like metal prongs. It was heated red hot, or used ice cold, to tear the breasts of women accused of adultery, heresy, or self-induced abortion. This wasn't just about pain, it was about disfigurement. It was a way to physically brand a woman as unnatural or corrupt, destroying her ability to nurse children and marking her chest with the scars of her sin. The brutality of the breast ripper reveals a society obsessed with controlling women's reproductive bodies and punishing them for any perceived deviation from the role of the perfect mother. A throne of spikes. Imagine a chair covered in hundreds of sharp spikes on the seat, the backrest, the armrests, even the leg restraints. This was the iron chair. Victims, often women accused of witchcraft, were forced to sit on this throne of agony. As straps were tightened, the spikes would pierce the skin not deep enough to kill instantly, but deep enough to cause excruciating pain with every breath. To make matters worse, a fire was sometimes lit beneath the iron seat, slowly roasting the victim alive. The psychological terror was immense. You could not move. You could not rest. The iron chair was often used as a tool for interrogation. After hours in this device, a woman would confess to anything dancing with the devil, casting spells just to make it stop. It was the ultimate machine for manufacturing truth through torture. The final purification. Finally, we arrive at the most iconic and devastating punishment of all: burning at the stake. This was the ultimate erasure. Reserved for the gravest crimes, heresy, witchcraft, treason, fire was chosen because it was believed to purify the soul while destroying the corrupt vessel of the body. The victim was tied to a post, surrounded by bundles of wood. When the fire was lit, death did not come quickly. If the wind was wrong, the victim wouldn't die of smoke inhalation. She would burn alive, screaming as the flames consumed her inch by inch. Joan of Arc, the teenage warrior, faced this fate in 1431. As the flames rose, she asked for a cross to be held high so she could see it through the fire. Her death, like thousands of others, was a public spectacle intended to terrorize any woman who dared to challenge the status quo. The legacy of fear. Looking back at these instruments of torture, the bridles, the stools, the stakes, it's easy to see them as relics of a barbaric past. But we must ask ourselves, what were they really for? They were tools of control. They were designed to police women's voices, their bodies, and their independence. Every woman silenced by the bridle, every witch burned at the stake, represents a life extinguished by fear. While we no longer use iron masks, the impulse to silence women who speak too loudly or step out of line still echoes today. By remembering these stories, we honor the resilience of those who endured the unendurable. History is a mirror, and sometimes the reflection is terrifying. These punishments remind us that the rights and safeties we enjoy today were won at a terrible cost. If you found this deep dive into the dark history of crime and punishment fascinating, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. We have many more stories to uncover, secrets to reveal, and voices to amplify. What punishment shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious and never take your freedom for granted.